Cedrick Bridgeforth. Oh my God, what a wonderful man. In his bio, he writes Southern Black, gay, fatherless, Air Force veteran, ordained Methodist minister, master of hiding in plain sight. That's just the tip of it. I mean, the way he strings together wellness and what he wants to do for his community, it's remarkable. His mission, doing good work with and for those doing good work. What a remarkable, wonderfully crafted mission. If we would be a better society with more Cedricks, if we could follow his lead. He has a very interesting perspective on discipline. I look forward to having you hear that, where I get a lot of pushback from discipline, and he talks about wellness. It's just fascinating. And the book that he wrote, Alabama Grandson, Black Gay Minister's Passage Out of Hiding, with letters to his grandmother, how he arrived to the book. Just a wonderful conversation, a warm, generous man that you're going to like and you're going to know more about. And you need to read his book and read his writings, and we'll all be better for it. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Thank you so much for doing this, Cedrick Bridgeforth. I really, really appreciate it. Now, I have to begin here because people who unfortunately don't know you, they need to get to know you. But so your background, you're originally from Alabama, Southern, as your bio says, and I learned from you, Southern, Black, gay, fatherless, Air Force veteran, ordained Methodist minister, the master of hiding in plain sight. With all those identities, Cedrick, how do you arrive to the wonderfully honorable mission of doing good work, for those doing good work?
Yeah, Joe, thanks for that. I think it's just really a lifelong pursuit of just trying to identify my purpose, live into it, and finding joy in it, and serving other people, and helping to bring out the best in other people, and just wanting. I guess I'm a junkie for that, right? Wanting to see that in people over and over again.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just adjusting my microphone a little bit, but I mean that is very, very modest of you. I mean, the book. We're going to get to the book. It's just amazing what you've done there, but how it was very challenging. You've had so many challenges in your life. The death of your grandmother. You know, uh, you have this great quote where you say, "Don't come out." As far as being gay, don't come out, come in. There's so much. There's so much that we can all learn from you, Cedric. Let's start there. Just don't come out, come in. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is something that came to me over the years, and of witnessing, friends and just folks within my orbit just agonizing with this whole concept of coming out. When do I
Mm.
come out to my family, my friends, my coworkers, or how do I do this? How will I be received or rebuffed in many cases? And and having lived through an experience where I had my own little coming out, wrote my mom this 4-page letter and mailed it and sent it off.
Nice.
And, it played out all right for me. But, having seen many friends and others that I've known through the years not have such a positive experience, I just started thinking about it. Like, what is this? Right. None of my siblings had to write a letter to my mom and say, hey, this is the type of person I love. This is who I am. We just discovered it. We lived into it, loved it, and accepted it as life went on. And and for me, it's like, wait a minute. When we start coming out, like we're coming out of what? Like, what are we coming out
Hmm.
of? I'm not coming out of my identity. I'm not coming out of the relationship I'm in. I'm not coming out of the community I've built. What am I really coming out of? So instead, I see this more, power based when I am willing not to come out, but to invite in. And that's to invite you into the journey that I'm already on, to invite you into the wonderful person that I'm discovering that I am, inviting you into full love with me. Because I learned in life that you can't love pieces and parts of people, right? And so by me coming out, I'm just taking a piece of me and offering it to you, and you can take it or leave it. But if
Hmm.
I invite you in, I'm inviting you into all of me. And that allows me to retain my power. You can say yes, you can say no, but I never say no to myself in that when I'm functioning that way.
It seems so simple, right? I know that many struggle with it, and you've been through it, and you're helping others with it now. Um, I'm just overwhelmed with you. You're such a remarkable individual. Your writing process. So you've had four books that I've seen. Your latest, of course, is Alabama Grandson. A black gay minister's passage out of hiding. It's kind of letters to your grandmother that passed when you were young in the beginning. Very heartwarming. Great lessons to be learned. How did you come to really want it's about a year old, give or take now.
Mhm.
How did you arrive to the point where you wanted to publish something like this?
Yeah, I don't know that I ever really wanted to, Joe.
Mm.
That's really started as a therapeutic exercise. It was just before the pandemic really kicked off. I was doing some work with my therapist about just digging deeper into my identity, dealing with more issues around authenticity. And I just started, writing this series of letters introducing my current self to my long since deceased grandmother. And the question was, like, how would she receive me today? How would she view my life and what I've accomplished and who I've become? Because she had visions about who I might be in the world and how I would show up. And so it's like, how would I measure up to that? That was really the guiding question. And so it was just a series of letters, and took me down memory lane, remembering some stories, some characters, and adventures along the way. And in that process, I ended up sharing a couple of the letters with a writing coach, whom I didn't realize was also a publisher. She read them and said, "Look, we got to talk."
Hmm.
And that whole team came on board, read some more of my letters, and said, "This is bigger than you think." And so then it turned into this narrative, crafting this narrative around these stories. And one of the highlights in it, Joe, is that in writing, I was started describing these lessons that I was learning. Well, as I stepped back and reflected on it, I realized that these weren't lessons I was learning; these were lessons that were taught
Hmm.
years ago. These were mantras, aphorisms, and sayings that my grandmother had spouted years ago. When you're 8, they don't mean anything. When you're 48, they land a little bit
Hmm.
differently, right? And so I was able to then start to see how the seeds that were planted, decades ago were now, not just taking root, but were flourishing in my life. And that's really where the homage really started to really blossom in the writing process.
One of my favorites, from your mother, excuse me, from your grandmother, yeah, don't fool with people who have less than you to lose.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that was a
wise.
big one for her. Yeah, that was a big one. Don't mess with people who have less than, less than you to
It's
lose.
very true, very true. So do you continue to you journal today?
No, I do not.
Hmm,
I have to confess, that I am not a journal person. If I go to your retreat or your seminar, I read your spiritual disciplines book, and as soon as there's something in there about journal every day, I close it up, I close off, I shut down, I walk away. I'm not that guy. I've
interesting.
never really been that guy. I journal on occasion, but I'm not a daily journal person. I have to be inspired to do it.
But these letters you wrote to your grandmother were an exercise with your therapist?
Yes, yeah,
I
yeah. They
see.
grew out of an exercise with my therapist, and just because I really wanted to do some more. I was doing some reading around authentic leadership and serving in the variety of roles that I serve in. I'm just always assessing my own how I'm showing up as a leader or participant in a variety of spaces. And so I was really questioning my own sense of authenticity,
Hmm,
and so he guided me through some storytelling exercises and all kinds of other things. And then, it's like, well, how about you do some writing? He called it writing, not journaling. So it's like, okay, I can do that. And I, decided they would be letters, right? Because I like writing letters.
hmm.
And so that's how I got started.
That's very interesting, in that there are letters that you didn't write to yourself, but you wrote to your grandmother as part of this exercise, but you didn't consider it journaling. Did you do it every day?
No, no, I did not. Just as ideas would come, thoughts, or, I'd have a memory about something. It's like, what's that about? And I just, write the story. Like, what did I learn from it? Who was there? What brought that on? I mean, so it was more of that. And there were more confessions, I think, than
Mm,
anything else. It was a way to own up to some things without really having to tell anybody,
hmm,
what was going on. So that was a cool part of it, and my writing process in general is not a daily thing.
hmm.
In order for me to write, I have to create space, so I'll usually block off 3 or 4 days, and I'll rent me a hotel room somewhere and go there,
Good
an
idea.
hour or two away out in the desert or down by the ocean or somewhere, just so I'm cut off from my normal day-to-day distractions, and I write in blocks of time. I have to know that no one and no thing is going to impede upon my creative process, and so that's how I do it. Even when I was in my doctoral program, I wrote my dissertation over 4 weekends, because I did 3 and 4 day weekends and wrote my entire dissertation
Wow.
because they were uninterrupted times. And so that just works for me, to create that space, and I'm able to focus on the idea, the project, the process itself.
So you're in high school and you're kind of enamored by someone from the Air Force that comes in. You decide to join the Air Force. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, Sergeant Tom McCrae came to my high school. I only signed up to go to the assembly to get out of my English literature class. I, wanted to go see what was happening in the library, along with several of my friends, and we were sitting there all lined up, joking around, doing what teenage boys do. And whoever the principal or the guidance counselor, someone introduced the guys that were up there, but the one who stood, stepped up to the little makeshift podium, and he spoke with such clarity and confidence. I mean, like nothing I had ever seen or
Hmm.
heard before in my life. That was the first African American man I'd ever seen truly command a room with every single word. Even
Wow.
his silence held my full attention. And sitting there looking at him, Joe, I was very clear that I wanted to be him. I
Hmm.
wanted to do whatever he had done. And I was willing to, invest, sacrifice whatever I needed to do to be whatever that was. Turns out he was an Air Force recruiter. And so the very next day, I signed up to go back to that same library and take the ASVAB, which is the military entrance exam, and did quite well on it. He reached out, we connected, and as they say, the rest is history. But it was really my quest to emulate him. I never had any desire to serve in the military. I didn't go in the Air Force to get money for college. I went in the Air Force to discover Tom McRae and to become that type of individual.
And this was in Decatur. This was in Alabama.
Yeah, this is in Alabama, Danville High School, just south of Decatur, Alabama. Yep.
So you joined the Air Force and you served for how long? How did you find it?
I served 4 years. Yeah, I served 4 years, and primarily in Wyoming and Colorado as a missile security officer, and then worked in the armory as well. So around combat arms, for the majority of my time there.
And you enjoyed it.
I did. I really did. It was a great way to grow up. I think I always presented with a little bit of maturity, but I wasn't grown, as the old folks
Mm.
would say. You're of age, but you ain't grown, right?
Mhm.
So the Air Force was a way to grown me up, if you will, and it was a way for me to have some responsibility, but to do that in a somewhat controlled environment. I was accustomed to controlled environments. My
Mm.
grandmother, maintained a controlled environment for us. I was very involved with the church. That was a controlled environment, right?
Mm.
And so the Air Force was just another iteration of being within a controlled environment. But even within that, I found great freedoms, right? I met other people who were gay, who identified as gay and lesbian,
Mm.
and was able to, own some parts of that identity while also continuing my pursuit to be and to do whatever this thing was that Tom McRae had presented that day in the library. And so for me, it was a great way to explore, but to stay attached to
Hmm.
something that could kind of keep me within bounds as well.
Was this around the don't tell, don't say time in the
This
military?
was before Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I served under Bush Senior, so from '88 to '92. In fact, right on top of his presidency. So this was pre Clinton. It was pre Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So this was you better not, say
Mm.
you better not get caught. You better not. So everything was very covert. So I was really surprised when right away I discovered such. Community, amongst folks who identified as
Hmm.
lesbian and gay. I just got my first supervisor. I mean, right out of the gate, was divorcing his wife because he wanted to go live his life, and he was gay and knew it all of his life, and just had gotten to the breaking point for himself, and then to be invited into a broader community through that revelation was a gift. It was a real gift because otherwise, I probably would have been a mess. You
Hmm.
know, left to my own devices, I probably would have been a mess.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you leave the military and you go on to get 3 degrees.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I left the Air Force in August of '92 with no clue about what was next and how to, execute that or whatever. So I went back to Alabama and, started trying to piece my life together. Like, what can I do? Right? Found myself, continuing my, presence and relationship within the church. Um, by this time, my grandmother, was deceased. I really wasn't sure about college. I knew I had to go at some point, but I still wasn't sure how to do that,
Hmm.
even, how to pay for it, where to go. I didn't know any of that. So I did what everybody else I'd ever known had done. I found a job. You
Right.
know, I found a job, and several jobs. In fact, one of my jobs, was as a security guard at the hospital where I was born.
Hmm.
That was one of my jobs, and I also, started working for Domino's Pizza. And I credit Domino's with me going to college,
Wow.
because I got sick of that place. And one day it was just very clear that I'm better than this.
Hmm.
And that's not to dismiss anybody who works for Domino's Pizza or any, other thing. But for me, my calling was not that. My
Right.
calling was something else, right? And So for me, that was the better. And it was, you better go find it, right? You better go find it. And that's when I got in my truck in my full on Domino's uniform, hat and all, and drove to Birmingham and found Samford University. Not that I had done any research on it, didn't know what it cost, didn't know what it took to get in. I'd just been there a few years earlier as a participant in Boys State. So I knew the campus. So I knew it was on Lakeshore Drive, that was right off of I-65 somewhere. So I drove down, I found it, located the admissions office, went in, got an application, filled it out, went to the library, typed up my essay, wrote them a $35 application fee in full Domino's regalia,
Wow.
and turned it in. So,
And they accepted you, and this was the beginning of your educational career at that point?
yeah, it was, and they worked with me in such a way that I was able to complete my BA in 3 years.
Right.
They gave me like, I think 30 or 35 units for military service, so I didn't have to take any electives at all.
Wow.
So all of my units were within my major, and so I was able to graduate undergrad in 3 years, and then went directly from undergrad to my master's program out here at Claremont School of Theology. That's how I ended up in California right away, and had no intentions on living in California. I was just coming to get my master's degree, and then I was going to go off to Union Theological Seminary and Columbia University in New York and get my PhD in New Testament. And my ministry was going to be teaching New Testament.
Wow.
That was it. Yeah.
But then you went to Claremont, and then you went to Pepperdine.
Right. I went to Claremont. And they started paying me in sunshine. The bishop here appointed me as a part-time student local pastor in my third year of my master's program, and I
Wow.
fell in love with those people at that church that I was assigned to, and ended up staying there for 4 years. And as I said, they started paying me in sunshine, and I'm still here. And yes, eventually matriculated at Pepperdine, where I got my doctoral degree. Yeah.
I'm from the Northeast, and my daughter went to Cal State. She just graduated, but she's just addicted to that sunshine, Cedric. She's not leaving.
It's the economy. The sunshine is our economy,
It
right? I
is.
mean, that's why we'll pay $7 for a gallon of gas, because we'll make it up with sunshine.
Yeah, 10% sales tax. Yeah, yeah.
We'll make it up with sunshine.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And I had the great opportunity, you recorded on your YouTube channel. Your content is tremendous, where I get to watch one of being a minister, and you're so good at just kind of laying it out and just smiling all too often, as I'm a Generation X, and I remember just church as a young kid, just kind of droning on, and not being really understood, and sometimes speaking in Latin, and but you just do such a good job of laying it out. Your favorite biblical passage, Colossians 3:23. I'll let
Yeah.
you summarize that, but it's wonderful. Again, it's similar to your mission.
Yeah, Colossians 3:23, which is loosely translated, and I'd say
Right.
loosely translated because you won't find it written anywhere except somewhere where I've written it, because it's
Mhm.
how I memorize it and how I maintain it. But it's whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as if working for the Lord and no one else. And when
Mm.
I'm in secular spaces, it's whatever you do, work at it. And that gets the point across. And I begin and end each day with that. And when I get stuck in the midst of my day of why am I doing this? Why am I in this 3 hour meeting? Why did I agree to lead this workshop? Why am I stuck in this airport? Whatever you do, work at it as if working for the Lord and no one else. So it reminds me of my core purpose in life. And that's to just keep working at it. And this is not about me. It involves me, but it's not about me.
Yeah, it certainly isn't. And how have you found, your Methodist minister? I mean, how has it been, you know, identifying as gay, and being there? How is the community, and the public accepted that? Has it been a big obstacle?
Not really. I mean, the overall denominational stance, the United Methodist Church's denominational stance, is not a it's trash.
Really?
It's
Really?
trash. But in our region, we live past that, right? We live in a space of openness and grace and compassion, and really um, invite people to just be their full selves, right? So that's the gift of the sunshine again. Again, maybe it's the sunshine that makes us behave this way. And so the issues around sexuality and gender identity are not focal points for us. And so it's really, for me, it's just really been about showing up in a congregation in places where I've been assigned as a pastor. It's showing up in that congregation and providing the best spiritual and temporal leadership that I possibly can provide. And I don't lead with my sexuality. I don't lead with I don't even, care to let congregations know what I eat or don't eat. Like that's
Right.
not what I'm there for, right? So that's not why I'm there. And that's not to say I deny who I am, but I lead in a particular way, and it's really to connect with people, let them get to know what they want to know or need to know about me, and I offer them the same gift. And we agree upon a vision for the ministry that we're a part of, and we pursue that, right? And we allow that to be the thing that unifies us. And I found that as long as we're working toward a common purpose, some of the other things that if we try to lead with them or center them, really don't matter that much,
Mm,
right? But perfect example, in 2016, I was serving a church in Orange County, California, which is a rather conservative, politically, theologically, area of the state. But I was appointed to serve a congregation there in 2015, and then in 2016 we had our bishop elections, and the United Methodist Church elected an openly, a lesbian, the first one elected
right.
as bishop. Well, I was in that. I was a candidate as well, right? And so the election happened. We had the consecration on that Saturday. That Sunday, I was back in Orange County at my church, and we opened up the announcements, and I shared, for those of you on social media, you already know this, but those of you who are not, you know just be aware, we elected Karen Oliveto on yesterday, and yes, she's a lesbian. Her wife's name is Robin, and we celebrate this. Well, at my 8 o'clock service there was a gasp, like I can't believe this happened, right?
Really?
And, I was kind of thrown off by that. And I was like, wait a minute, time out. You all do know, had I got elected, I would have been the first openly gay bishop elected in the United. And they're like, yeah, but we know you. It's
Oh my
like,
goodness.
okay. And then at my 10 o'clock service, made the same announcement verbatim. There was a standing ovation,
Wow.
right? And this was a congregation that,
Wow.
and then a few months later, we have the election, the presidential election of 2016. And the day after the election, there are members of the congregation walking around with the Orange County Register headlines talking about we won, while half the congregation is in utter terror because they don't know what's going to happen to them, because many of them are undocumented, living in the country
Uh-huh.
undocumented. And so it's like, whoa, wait, people, all of us did not win. So let's pause and let's find out, how we're doing and how we're going to manage this as a community. And what we realized in the midst of this, Joe, was that our assumptions were wrong. The
Hmm.
assumptions were that those who were living undocumented in the U.S. were those who were part of our Spanish language congregation. But what we learned is that we had more in our Filipino language congregation and in our Tongan language ministry who were undocumented than we had in our Spanish language ministry. So not only did it bring those non-English speaking ministries within our congregation together, but it then galvanized those in the English language ministry who were shouting "We won" to like, oh, but wait a minute, all of us didn't win. So how can we turn this into a win? And now that congregation is an asylum location where they, house families that are in the country
Wow.
waiting for and seeking asylum. And we were able to do that because we backed up and began to see what's the greater vision that we can pursue together, as opposed to trying to get our individual wins. And I think that same model has worked well for me in a variety of places, because let's figure out where we're going, Because if we could all agree that we're going to the same place, then how we get there and who we are along the way, it'll shift and it'll change, right? And I
Mm,
think it'll change for the better because we're doing this together. So let's figure out how to do this together so that all of us can change on the way to that vision that we're pursuing.
hmm. You mentioned that the policy, of the Methodist Church is trash, but why elect openly gay then? I mean, that's a good improvement. That's a good sign.
Well, because we're in the Western jurisdiction and we just did it, because we don't agree with the rest of the church on this, right? So,
Oh.
yeah, we don't, yeah, we're not abiding by that. That's dishonoring a person's humanity. It's intentional segregation of the body. It's an unhealthy way to live.
Hmm.
So, if we have a well qualified candidate, then he or she is a person who needs to be elected.
I had the good fortune of speaking to a Methodist minister out of Detroit, and she's gay, Marcia, I wanna say Ledford, and she echoed that, but I mean, that Detroit's in the middle of America. How
Hmm.
I didn't realize there's kind of segments of the church like that that can vote like that. That's good news.
Yeah, it's we have in the U.S. we're divided into 5 regions within the United States, and so each region does its own elections. And now collectively, we all have the same rule book, but how that gets applied is decided more locally.
By rule book, do you mean the Bible?
I mean, the Book of Discipline.
Interesting, and what is
Yeah,
this?
funny you should ask. It's the United Methodist Book of Discipline. Yes, that's how thick it is.
Wow.
But it's all of the rules, the Constitution, and all the rules that govern how we behave, how we function, the types of programs and ministries we'll have within the church. And there's a global body of delegates that meet every 4 years to update or make changes to this.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you learn it and memorize it as you do the Bible?
No, there are discipline geeks. We call them discipline
Huh.
geeks. There are people who can tell you chapter and verse, about about the book of discipline. Uh, but for the most part, when we're in seminary, we learn how it's laid out and some of the basic tenets of it. But it's really a document that ebbs and flows over time. So memorizing page numbers and paragraphs really don't serve you well
Mm.
for the juicy parts because every 4 years they get tinkered with in one way or the other.
And are there direct kind of edicts in that book that talk about those that identify gay?
Yeah, it says that though we honor that all humans are of sacred worth, we find that homosexuality is incompatible with Christian teaching, and what that
Wow.
translates into is that you cannot be ordained, and anyone who is ordained or serves as a pastor within the United Methodist Church cannot marry, same gender couples, and yeah, and that people who identify as LGBTQIA plus cannot be ordained.
Now, why be part of a community that has that belief?
That's a tricky question. For me, it's part of my origin story.
Mm,
So I grew up as part of it, both Baptist and Methodist for the better part of my life. And the other thing too, Joe, is that I learned very early in life from my grandmother that my relationship with God and my relationship with the church are two separate things, and the
interesting.
church is but one vehicle that's available to me to work out my relationship with God. And so that has saved me time and time again. But I also, believe that I'm one of those, institutionalists, who believes that if you want to, see an institution change, one of the best ways to do that is from
Hmm,
the inside,
hmm.
right? I mean, you can stand outside and lob bricks at it and, throw bombs into it all day long. But until those on the inside decide they want to change it, it won't change.
Mm. It's a wonderful segue, discipline, I we all the kind of string that ties the podcast together here is discipline. And I lost a lot of weight, and people always ask me how, and like there's some magic bullet, and I just say discipline. I got focused. The doctor said you're not going to see your daughter graduate, which, by the way, she just graduated Cal State, but
Yeah.
you're not going to see her unless you do something. So I got discipline. I got focused. I didn't tell anybody, and away I went. Do you consider yourself a disciplined person, Cedric?
There are people who say they view me as a disciplined person.
Mm,
For me, I have boundaries. I have some routines, and I have some expectations. I guess that's discipline, right? you know, but for me, the through line is wellness, right?
mm,
That's the through line. My therapist, that one of my older therapists that I work. I've had a lot of therapy too, by the way.
mm.
Let me throw that in there. Very helpful. Everybody needs this therapist on speed
Yes.
dial.
Mm,
We worked for a long time around this concept of wholeness, and I struggled with that. I struggled with. I did the work, that he asked me to do, but that language of wholeness never really settled for me. It's like every 2 weeks or so when we would meet, I would leave like, but I'm already a whole person.
hmm,
I'm a whole person. So what is he talking about? And I'm thinking something's wrong with me. And it was several years later that I stumbled upon I was at a workshop or a retreat, and the presenter was talking about wellness, and I was like, that's it. Like, that's what I want. That language works for me, right? To seek
mm,
wellness in my relationships, wellness in my finances, wellness in my career, wellness in my community, right? Um, because wholeness to me speaks about a deficit,
mm,
right? It's claiming something that may not be true, right? Even in part. And so, but wellness, to pursue wellness, yeah, that could just be semantics, but they work for me, right? And so for me, the through line is wellness. And so in my relationships, are we well, right? Like, are we communicating well? Are we, spending time together that's helping us to be well? As I look at my savings or my investments or my spending, is this leading to me being well?
mm,
Not just today, but also in the future. Am I making decisions in my vocation and in my career that's helping me to be well on a daily basis? And how is that impacting others' wellness as well? So for me, that's the through line, and I guess you could call that discipline.
yeah, when I hear wellness, it kind of summons, kindness and benevolence and kind of community. And it's fascinating to me. Uh, I get a lot of pushback, Cedric, on discipline because some definitions are a bit militant, or
Hmm.
they're a bit, harsh as in disciplining their child, or like I said, military. And others say, you don't need you don't need discipline, you need love. And it's interesting. Your take on it is where you kind of look out and you say people may view you as disciplined, but you think it's more of a wellness, is a kind of discipline is attached to wellness. I've never heard that angle before. Fascinating.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, because I think there are, clients I work with, and, colleagues, even friends and family, you know, think I'm somewhat rigid, in
Hmm,
how I face the world. And I know some folks who are rigid, right? And
hmm,
I would say, and I've heard that, for the better part of my life, but I don't see myself that way. But clearly I show up that way in some instances. But for me, the pursuit itself, it's not to be disciplined. The pursuit itself is wellness,
hmm.
right?
And perhaps one of the elements or the vehicle to get there is discipline,
Is discipline, right? Because I believe in accountability.
right?
I believe in knowing what I'm responsible for. I believe in knowing who I'm accountable to and what I'm accountable for. And I'm also, want to be clear about what I have authority to do or not do, or who has authority, in whatever spaces I find myself in. And I also, want to be clear about the boundaries,
Hmm,
right? Because that's going to help me pursue the goal, whatever the goal is. If I'm clear about accountability, authority, responsibility, and the boundaries, we can move mountains.
Mm.
Yeah, we can move mountains in our personal life, in our finances, in our relationships, in our work, in our communities, in the world. If we can get clear about those things, oh yeah, we can move mountains.
Hmm. And what a wonderful antidote. When you released Alabama Grandson, a black gay minister's right passage out of hiding, how was it received by? I mean, you're opening up yourself here. How was it received by friends, family, and just general public? You got a lot of great reviews on Amazon, which is tremendous. I added one too, by the way. But how was it received?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll start with my mom because she was the
Yeah.
first person outside of the editorial team to get a preview, and I had written probably close to 600 pages of narrative. And I went down to Kinko. Well, it's not Kinko's anymore. FedEx office.
I
I'm
know what
dating myself, right? Everybody, it'll always be Kinko's to me. Just like the crypto.com center downtown will always be Staples Center.
Staples, absolutely.
So I'm one of those people. But I teach change management, but I don't practice it, right? So,
He's disciplined.
but I printed, the copy, had it bound, put it in a box with several red pens and sent it to my mom. I told her, this is coming. There's some red pens in there. This is no questions asked. Anything in there you don't want to see the light of day, just cross it out. It'll go away. We don't even have to talk about it. And I talk to my mom every Sunday and, days in between if something's going on or I just want to hear her voice or whatever. But, I call her up, we chit chat and, a couple weeks go by. She's like, oh, I've been reading, this is really good, whatever, whatever. Like, okay, cool. And then I call her, just randomly one day and she answers the phone. She's like, hello. And I was like, hey, what's going on? I didn't read that book yesterday. And I was like, well, first off, I didn't ask anything about the book, but I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, there's something here. I was like, so what's going on?
Mm.
She's like, day before yesterday, I was reading and I felt like I was on the judgment seat all day. And I wasn't getting on there yesterday, but I started reading again this morning. So I'm okay. And I said, Mom,
Wow.
again, you have the red pens. Anything that you're uncomfortable with, just mark it out. And she's like, I'm going to keep reading. So she eventually finished reading and she called me up, and she said, well, I finished reading the book. And I said, okay, just send it back to me and whatever you marked out, I'll take it out
Yeah.
and we'll move on with the process. She said, well, no. She says, I didn't cross anything out. She's
Wow.
like, there's some stuff in here that I think need to be told. It's hard to read, but it needs to be told. She says, and ultimately, I think this book is going to save some lives. So
Wow.
tell it the way you want to tell it. And I don't think there could have been a greater gift, because there are some spaces and places in there that are not kind to her,
Mm.
in retrospect, right? And we have a wonderful relationship, right? But we had to live into that and to get to that space. And even with my siblings, once I realized this was going to turn into a book that other people might see, I, call them up like, hey, I'm working this thing and they're calling it a tell-all. So if there's any arena in our lives that we don't want, that you don't want me to talk about, just tell me now. And they kind of laugh and they're like, nobody knows us. You can tell whatever you want to tell.
Mm.
So having that freedom, and the affirmation from my mom was very helpful.
Yeah.
And by the time the book came out, my public life, my what do you say, my public persona, was shifting and changing anyway because some very public things that happened within the realm of the church in 2016. So I really didn't care what the church thought, at that point.
Mm.
My friends were great about it, because they're like, we'll get to know more, because I had lived a full life before I moved to California and before I met them. And so for them, it was an introduction to a part of my story that they never knew.
Do you think your grandmother would have taken anything out?
No one's asked me that question. I don't think so. I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because of the way she lived. She lived her life for other people. And from what I can tell, her life was on display.
Mm.
I mean, she wasn't a public figure, but she wasn't a private person either, right? If anyone needed a place to stay, They knew they could come to, Mother Griffin's house. If somebody couldn't feed their kids, they knew they could get food at Mother Griffin's house, right? If somebody was in jail and needed to be bailed out, including our pastor at one time, you call Mother Griffin. Like, she'll come take care of that, right? If you have a sick child, call Mother Griffin. Like, she'll know what to do. So she lived her life in service of other people. And so I would hope and believe that she would see that I've tried to do likewise. And because of that, sure, there were some things that could have, some different decisions, could have been made, but they weren't. But ultimately, I would hope and trust and believe that just seeing the totality of my life and how I too try to live in service of others, she could let it be a pass. She could
Mm.
let some of my lies and conniving and hiding, be a pass, right? The greater good, right? It's the principle of the greater good.
Yeah, just a general wellness. You describe her house, the smells, and the wonderful advice, and it's heartwarming, Cedric. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
What motivates you, Cedric Bridgeforth?
You know, Really, it's kind of where we started the conversation, and it's really, helping others to do good in the world.
Hmm.
I feel like that's my call in life, is to do good in the world by helping others to do good in the world. And I try to do that in my personal relationships. I try to do that in my day to day work within the church, and in my consulting and my teaching. Even riding my bike, doing the AIDS life cycle. Like, whatever I'm in, it's that pursuit.
People in the community that go to church, that go to your, to go to every Sunday. I think you said at 10 o'clock. One of the videos said, "What's the best thing they can do? How do they help?"
I think one of the best things that any of us can do is to just get clear about who we are and
Mm.
the type of world that we want to see, and then start taking steps day by day to live into that,
Hmm.
and to share that dream, to share that vision with other people around us. I think that's the best thing we can possibly do, because so many of us live our lives, not necessarily for other people, but we live our lives trying to be other people.
Mm.
And while we're trying to be other people, we are missing, right? We are missing in action trying to be other people. So if we could just dial it back and take a step and offer some compassion to ourselves, offer some time to ourselves to really get some clarity, gain some clarity about who we are, and how who we are can help us live into the dream or the vision that we have for the world. I think that's what can change the world.
One person at a time, and it's like you said before. It's better to stay within the institution to make change.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, think of writing the book was great, and getting to have conversations with people like yourself, and teaching and all that's great. But the church has given me a global platform,
Mm.
and there are so few institutions that'll offer you that, right?
Hmm.
But from right where I sit, I have access to the entire denomination,
Wow.
and I could allow my shame, I could allow my guilt, I could allow my anger to cause me to walk away and go off and do something else and probably make a heck of a lot more money. But
Right.
would I make the impact that I believe I can make from this platform within this institution and beyond?
Do you think that'll change? Do you think they'll remove that from the book of discipline?
I do. I do believe so. I do believe so. It's only been in there since 1972, basically
Hmm.
my whole life, right? So it's not like it's always been there. It just got there in 1972, and then there are all kinds of political, wranglings happening within the denomination right now, with some of the more conservative folks starting a different denomination and moving out to go do that. I mean, so it's just a matter of time, attrition, and the actuarial tables will take care of some of it.
Hmm.
So that sounds harsh, but it's true.
Yeah, it's like insurance, right? It's just all statistics. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the math is on our side.
Right. Right. Of course it is.
Yeah.
How do you measure success?
I measure success based on looking at what I'm pursuing and what I'm contributing. If what I'm pursuing is worthwhile and what I'm contributing is my absolute best, for me, that's success.
Hmm. And how is that? Do you measure that often?
I do, probably too often,
I
Joe.
say.
Yeah, probably too often. And I think part of it is just because of the nature of the work that I do, the variety of work that I get to do. From teaching and consulting, doing workshops, and my work within the church as well, and then some of my volunteerism as well. Like so, I have to keep all of that, keep my eye on all of it,
Right.
and make sure I'm offering the best I can whenever I'm in those arenas, and even when I'm away from it. Like, how am I contributing? So when I'm sitting here, having this conversation with you about the book, like, how is that, increasing my value within the organization that I work for? How is this going to help me when I'm back in the classroom? How's this going to help me when I'm coaching a client later this afternoon? How's this going to help me when I'm taking my partner, for a surgical consult tomorrow, right? Like, so I'm thinking about how all this how this can support the next thing, that can support the next thing. And so for me, that's a lot of people ask, well, how do you keep it all together? How do you know? I'd go crazy trying to do all the things you do.
Mm.
Well, all the things I do work together because they're all about helping other people be their best selves, right? And so all of it's about that. And so it's just, every little piece of it is just a piece of it, right? And it all comes together to make the whole. So I couldn't do any one of those things and be satisfied. I don't think.
All with that theme, with that common thread of wellness that we talked about
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a lot of things going on, but I'm not scattered,
Right.
right? They're all like, they're all focused within a particular arena, right? And I can show you the through line. I have a whiteboard over there. I can show you how it all connects together.
Wow. Wow. I know why people think you're very disciplined.
Oh, you're one of those people too, now, right?
Well, just by our conversation, what I know about you, I mean, you're very structured. You're focused. It would seem, and I don't know. The term discipline scares some people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you're talking to a vet here, right? I mean,
Right.
so I mean that whole construct is around discipline, and discipline doesn't scare me by any stretch. Again,
Mm.
my grandmother was she was disciplined,
Wow.
and the church has a we even call it the book of discipline,
That's
right? I
right.
mean, so, I'll send you a copy, Joe. I'll send you a copy. I mean, so I'm not afraid of discipline. I think for me, it's what you named earlier. It's that rigidity that sometimes get attached to to understandings of it. And so um, yeah, and I don't feel like I'm rigid. I just know what I need to accomplish in a day. I know why I need to or want to accomplish it, and I don't let a lot get in the way of that.
Right. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
driven and focused.
yeah.
Yeah, when I answer the question, they ask me how you lose weight, and I say discipline, but I've come to realize I meant self discipline.
Hmm.
I had a focus. I wanted to see my daughter, graduate, and that was it, and so then I just went into this mode where I ate less and exercised every day. There's no mystery there as to how you lose weight. It's no mystery. I have nothing new to
More out, less in,
That's
right? More
right.
out, less in.
It's as easy as that, people. I ate half, I stopped drinking sugary drinks, and I exercised every day. I mean, that's it. There's my book. I don't know. I don't just discipline, and here we are, Cedric Bridgeforth. What an absolute pleasure. So your book, let's talk about how people can you've got a great website, you've got YouTube. How can people get in touch with you? How can they get this great book?
Yeah, the book is available on Amazon and wherever books are sold. We can say that now in both
Mm,
paperback, hardback, and Kindle. So excited about that. We actually won some awards recently on the
Yeah.
book, so that's exciting.
Wonderful.
So someone other than my mom read it and said, "Hey, I like it." So that's that's gratifying. So I just want to throw that in there. But also just to keep up with different options and opportunities that are coming forth. CedrickBridgeforth.com or AlabamaGrandson.com are always good places to find me on social. Cedrick Bridgeforth. There's only one in the world. Make sure you put the K on Cedric though, because otherwise it won't get to me.
Mm. Great Instagram. You've got great quotes there. Has you riding your bike, as you mentioned, and just a great follow as well. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, thank you for that, Joe. Thank you for being disciplined enough to do this show, and for doing your part to help others to be their absolute best as well. Thank you for that.
My first and second goal of this podcast is to learn and meet fascinating people, and you fit both of those bills. Thank you so much. I look forward when I go out to see my daughter. Perhaps we'll have a cup of coffee, and well, I guess out there we'll have a smoothie or something, right?
We'll have what we have. We have all of it. It's organic. It's sustainable.
It's
We'll
vegan.
just have it in the sunshine.
That's right. Thank you so much, Cedric Bridgeforth. I appreciate your time. You be well, and I look forward to having that cup of coffee with you. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Joe.
Be well. Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.